She's sometimes sad, she's sometimes happy. She's doing things to make her life less crappy. Trying a treatment that's new on the scene. Let's sit back and talk about ketamine.
Welcome to Ketamine Insights, a podcast by and for people with mental illness like me and those who love us like my wonderful co-host Lynn. Today, Lynn and I talk about different ways to use lower dose lozenges from the comfort of your own couch. So we talk about journaling during a lozenge, doing therapy during a lozenge, and what it could look like to do a lozenge with someone holding your hand. I want to reiterate that Lynn and I are not physicians. We're not therapists. We're not any kind of trained mental health experts. That's kind of the point of this podcast. We have a different perspective, which is that of a patient and an ally. So we don't give advice. We give what we know, which is anecdotes and context. That said, this episode needs 2 corrections. First, since recording, I spoke to my compounding pharmacy and learned that they make lozenges in different flavors after years of disgusting tangerine. This is a revolution in ketamine lozenge technology. Second, we ask you to leave a voicemail for us in this episode, and we actually do not have a phone number for that right now. Turns out that those cost money. Okay. And finally, we're nearing the end of season 1, which is really exciting. This is episode 7 of an 8-episode season. And so far, we've reached more than 300 cities around the world, which is really surreal and fantastic. And, you know, the more we get out the word about this podcast, the more we can fight stigma, the more we can help people who are working to improve their own mental health. So please take a moment to share Ketamine Insights with a friend. Text them, DM them, call them up. Here is episode 7. Thanks. Okay. Hello, Lynn. This episode, we are going to talk about different ways to use a ketamine lozenge.
Cool.
So there's all kinds of different ways
we might be talking about. Yeah.
And I think like people think, you know, there's only one way. And so this is just a smattering of examples of different things you can do during or after a lozenge. And as usual, to encourage people to kind of experiment and not experiment like breaking the rules that your prescriber gave you, but experiment do you listen to music? Don't you? That kind of thing.
Okay.
So first of all, welcome to Ketamine Insights, everybody. I don't think I said that. That's the name of the podcast. We're happy you're here.
Follow us on Instagram.
Ketamine Insights and ketamine.insights@gmail.com. So ketamine lozenges come in a lot of different varieties. Sometimes they're called troches, and honestly, I don't know the difference.
Troches?
Yeah, I think it's the medium that the ketamine is kept in, or anyway, you put them in your mouth, both of them, lozenges and troches. Usually people keep them under their tongue and let it dissolve. There's all kinds of things about holding the spit, not holding this, I don't know. I find it really awkward to have a mouthful of spit.
Yeah.
It's very distracting. I don't do it. You're supposed to maybe
and you still have a good experience.
Yeah. They say you absorb more of the ketamine if you hold it in your mouth, but it's not worth it. If it's unpleasant, what's the point?
Yeah.
There's a huge range in the doses that different people use, from 50 milligrams to 400. Different people have different absorption rates. So the bioavailability, some people might react real strongly to a 50 milligram one, and other people might need a 200 milligram one to have the same reaction. There's all that kind of background stuff that's worth talking to your physician about. And also, if you need to, call the compounding pharmacy and ask them. And
what does the compounding pharmacy tell you? Ask them about how, should it be under my tongue? Should it hold my spit? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and how quickly is this meant to dissolve? Different compounding pharmacies, I think, like the prescriber will say, put 200 milligrams in a troche, but then the compounding pharmacy actually makes the thing, and some of them are more like a cough drop. Some of them more feel waxy. And things like that. And I don't think that the prescriber really specifies that. So you can ask the compounding pharmacy details like that, why is this dose waxy where the last one was like a cough drop, and like, should I take it differently? Should I
Okay.
treat it differently? Like, can you send me,
Yeah.
if your prescription is for 200 milligrams, for example, you can actually ask the compounding pharmacy if they'll like send it to you in 100 milligram doses, and you can then have a choice between taking one at a time or two at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Things
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Okay. So talk to the compounding pharmacy.
Yeah,
That's
ask questions. Like, that's the thing, right? Is just feel free to really ask questions of your prescriber and the pharmacy itself.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
often the pharmacy will send you back to the prescriber, but that's their job, is to answer your questions. So
yeah, that's important to remember.
yeah. So the idea is just to find ways to make these lozenges as useful to you as possible. And what we're going to be talking about today is like lower dose lozenges, not the kind that make you dissociate, that are more like similar to infusions, right? Where you're like out of your body for an hour or half an hour or whatever it is. So these are lower dose lozenges that are usually more meant for like upkeep, like between infusions. So if you're doing an infusion every 6 weeks or something to like maintain your mood, then these lozenges you might take like 3 times a week in those weeks between infusions.
Okay. So like 3 times a week, every week between the 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's usually the
infusions. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of a lot.
It is kind of a lot, especially because it takes about an hour or more, an hour and a half for most people to do it. So if you're a busy person with kids, with whatever, it can be hard to fit in. But like anything else, like if it's worth it, it's worth it. If it works, it's worth it, right? If it doesn't work, it's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah. And how long are you kind of like incapacitated for after you've done the lozenge? If it takes an hour and then you're like, can't drive, can't work, can't, look after other people.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
You're not really incapacitated. And you'll even like sometimes during the experience itself, you're not incapacitated depending on the dosage. So this is like what we're going to talk about is like you might do a therapy session. Like you're not like disassociated out of your body, not really sure what's real. You're more like laying around thinking similar to what we said before, like maybe you're having insights like, oh my God, I'm attracted to emotionally unavailable people. That's how my dad was. And now that's how, things like that. And sometimes it's more like, damn, I love lemonade. Like, it's a hot day. Like, let me go get some of that. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah. But you probably aren't supposed to drive.
You're not supposed to drive for the whole rest of the day.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people do it at night for that reason. Yeah. I actually kind of like doing it in the morning, but that's another thing to experiment with is different times. Yeah. Different. Some people do them when they're in a bad mood and it lifts their mood. Some people find that it's better to do it when you're already in a good mood and it then you have a more pleasant experience. It's kind of different strokes for different folks, but it's worth trying both, try all these different ways and see what works for you. So a few practical notes, like the taste is usually really, really bad of most of these. I don't know why.
It's unfortunate.
That's just like, come on, man.
Why can't they be good?
Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. But some people say taking a little bit of chocolate at the same time is helpful. Okay. I don't think so, but because it's like tangerine kind of flavored, a lot of them, and I'm not a big fan of chocolate. Interesting. But anyway.
Sort of like a cough drop or something?
Yeah, like they'll do like a couple chocolate chips in with the like cough drop feeling lozenge and let it all dissolve at once, and then it's not quite as revolting. The taste is like, it's frankly quite bad. But eventually you get used to it, like, like most things. And one last thing, keep them cool in the summertime, especially. Some of them come in like cold packs in the summer because they will melt together. And then you just
do you keep them in your fridge or something?
No, but just like room temperature. Like you don't want them sitting out on your front porch if it's 90 degrees outside.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Unless they're in the cold pack that they came in. And sometimes the shipping is so long that like you just want to keep them cool so they don't you don't want a wad of ketamine. That you have to like chip off and not know what's safe. Okay, so now we're going to get to the ways, different like ideas about ways to do a lozenge. So the first like kind of easiest one is similar to the way you would do an infusion. Alone on your bed, on your couch, laying down, music in your headphones, maybe a eye mask, right? Not a blindfold because that's weird.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Creepy. I like to bring my dog over and like have her at my feet because I find it comforting. And, you know, choose your music. This is a nice opportunity to like try different music that you might then use for an infusion. Because you're not as out of it. So you can like skip a song if you don't like it, that kind of thing. And then like, so I'm going to give some examples of like the different benefits of all these different ways to do a lozenge. So for this one, like an insight that you might have, for example, while you're laying down and kind of pondering whatever, just like thinking about your life. I was kind of broke a while back, as I still am, and remembered. So I was thinking about like I wanted to write more, and I was thinking about taking this class for writing, but it was quite expensive, and I didn't know if I'd be able to keep up with it anyway. I have cognitive deficiencies since doing electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. So I didn't know if like my stamina or my attention span could even handle it, and why spend the money if you're not going to be able to handle it. And then I remembered that I have an old friend who is a writing professor. And I was like, oh, she's out of work at the moment. I can hire her to maybe sit with me for an hour a week and be like an actual writing coach, like one-on-one. And I approached her about it later, and she ended up wanting me to give her business advice with my like MBA training. And she was like, let's just trade. We'll spend half an hour on your thing and half an hour. Yeah. And we ended up like, it got us back in touch too. So it was really nice.
Yeah. Oh, that is nice.
So it's just like basically what you find a lot during these lozenges is like walls that exist for no particular reason in your mind. Like, oh, that's impossible. That's not things that you don't consider suddenly can occur to you. So it's worth trying to take advantage.
That's nice.
Yeah. And then, so that was an example of an insight. So there's, like we've talked about before, like there are two things that ketamine often does. Like it'll lift your mood, but it also provides insights, helps you make new insights. So that was an insight example. I'll give you a quick mood example. I find for me, like, I don't necessarily feel more cheerful after a lozenge, or at least not consistently so, but I do feel more capable.
Okay.
Which is fucking nice. Especially as someone who like doesn't have all the abilities that I once did. Things that used to feel exasperating, overwhelming, like just bewildering, now suddenly like feel approachable.
Okay. And that in and of itself might be mood lifting.
Sure. Yeah.
In a way. It's not like afterward you're like automatically like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a euphoria or something. But if you feel more capable, that kind of imagine sort of lifts your mood.
Totally. Yeah, it does for me. Like, maybe I can do that thing. Feel a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
And the problem, unfortunately, is that feeling of being capable doesn't always last that long. So I do try to like act on the thing that I feel I can now suddenly do as quickly as possible.
So you do it. Yeah.
Not necessarily like during the lozenge, but I try to like, I do it like either that day or like I'll do something that makes you know how people use different tricks to hold themselves accountable. Like I'll tell the person that I want to have a conversation with them, and then I'm kind of stuck. You know?
Yeah. So then someone knows that you're supposed to do it. So then you're held to it.
You've painted yourself in a corner kind of, and you have to. So I like act on it in a way that makes it more likely to actually happen.
Okay.
And then, you know, another thing you can do while you're on a lozenge is journaling. I actually find the combination of these first two really helpful. So I'll like sit for half an hour, 45 minutes, just quietly with music, and then start journaling. And I often find that like new things occur to me during the journaling process that didn't occur to me while I'm laying down.
Cool.
So another thing to keep in mind is that your language centers can be affected by lozenges or by ketamine in general. So you can't always talk or describe, you might be losing words, that kind of thing. And for that reason, sometimes for a lot of people, recording is easier than writing. So
Okay.
like you record yourself with your phone or something. That's like a
It's
more
like narrating what you're
Yeah.
thinking rather than writing it out.
Yep.
So you're not losing the words if you're recording them. So you can do like an oral narration, but you're not going to be able to write out those
Yeah,
words. Maybe
like
you might not be able to.
After an infusion, it can be hard to talk at all for like 4 or 5 minutes. But
Okay.
basically what I'm getting at is that like, because speech is an older capacity than written language, you're
Mhm.
more likely to be able to like
Okay.
talk articulately than write articulately.
Yeah. Okay.
It might just be easier. You'll struggle less, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing like it can do is like help recognize, it can help you recognize patterns, which might either be
Okay.
like personal psychological patterns like we've already talked about, or also like
Mhm.
just interesting shit from the world around you, you know, be like, I never noticed that every movie with so and so in it, like what was it? I heard a podcast recently about how every movie with Keanu Reeves is like he's a blank slate and things are projected onto him. And it was like a weird, like they went through all of his movies and it was like pretty accurate.
Yeah. Like, okay.
And he's like the biggest star in
Even,
America that we don't know anything about.
Yeah. Okay. Even Bill and Ted. Is that what's called? Bill and
I don't
Ted's,
know.
what's it called?
That's a good
Excellent
point.
Adventure.
I've
Yeah.
actually never seen that
I don't know.
movie.
What?
I know.
What? Weren't you born in the 80s?
I was.
Feel like that was like our generation. But okay.
I gotta watch it.
Bookmark that one. Yeah, you should watch that one. Maybe after your next infusion.
Yeah, it's like a
or
pretty
lozenge.
joyful movie, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. It's super fun. I mean, it's pretty misogynistic too, but you know, as a lot of like, I feel like a lot
80s
of things when I
movies.
look back, things that are from like my childhood, I'm like, oh my God,
Completely.
so sexist and racist and all these
Mhm.
things. I'm like,
And you're like,
no,
wait,
I don't
what
want
were
my kids
the
watching.
adults thinking? And
I
you're like,
know,
everyone
guess.
thought that way. That's just,
Yeah, exactly. That's just the way things work.
yeah, it was the
Yeah.
water everyone was
disturbing.
swimming in. Yeah. No
Yes.
wonder I am confused about gender roles as an adult.
Yes, exactly.
A lot of mixed messages.
And now and I keep being like, oh, I want my kids to watch these things that I watched as a kid. And I'm like, oh, no, actually, we're
Never
not going to
mind.
watch that stuff.
Right. Like the new Disney movies are actually a lot more progressive than the stuff we
Oh
grew
my
up
gosh.
on.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah. So like it just helps you recognize patterns and stuff like that. The making
Mhm.
connections in the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're journaling, like you might come up with stuff that's like worth bringing to your therapist later, like stuff you just want to explore. And that like,
Okay.
not to beat a dead horse, but it's definitely worthwhile to like go back and read that stuff later. So
Yeah.
I've kind of fallen off the wagon with this, but I used to journal every morning and then before every therapy session, go back and read the week's worth of journals.
Okay.
And you can kind of like notice the things that were bothering you that aren't necessarily bothering you today, so you forgot about them, or like notice all the accomplishments you did that week or whatever, things that kind of slip your mind.
I love that you just used the term falling off the wagon for going back and rereading your journals. Can't believe it. Do you want to start going to a group about that?
I was thinking
very concerning.
The journaling, the no longer journaling group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm
I
sure
always forget if
there's
it's
a group
like,
near you.
What is the getting on the wagon? I always like get it mixed up.
I know. I think falling off the wagon is like when you start. I know. I feel like if you start drinking again,
start doing the bad thing. Being on the wagon
start
is
doing
good.
the bad thing.
Okay.
Yes, I think you got like. I mean, I understood what you're saying, but I think you're all kind of mixed up.
Did I get
right? Yeah,
Not
you
surprising.
Yeah, but that's okay. But I mean, I understand.
I've always, and then you remember it's like if you grew up with hot water on the wrong side of the tap, like you never, you're for the rest of your life, you're like, I just have to turn on the water and see what happens.
Yeah, totally. I know. Yeah. Did you grow up with the wrong hot water on the wrong side of the tap?
There were like several taps in my life that were backwards. And now it's
so you're just all perpetually confused.
Yeah. In my 20s, it was like
yeah.
never, I always had to wait and see what happened to the water.
Yeah.
Now I kind of got
like,
it.
What's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just took a decade
These are just
or
like
so.
the deep scars that.
Yeah. Okay. You'll always be falling off the wagon the wrong way for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Or trying to get on it when I should be trying to get off it. Okay, so another way to use a lozenge that a lot of people don't think about at all is to do it during therapy. Like
Okay.
Sometimes I'll actually have the lozenge in my mouth and do a therapy session.
Okay. Cool.
And of course, the therapist knows, like, you don't want to do
Yeah,
that in
yeah.
secret. And it really changes the session in a couple ways. So one of them is that it's easier to delve more deeply, as you might expect. There are like MDMA is understood, at least right now, to be more powerful at this, but ketamine does to some degree like turn down the fear in your brain, which makes trauma easier to revisit. You're not you can revisit things that are normally overwhelming and not be overwhelmed.
Okay.
And so that can be a really, really useful like window to explore, and process things in a way that's not like kind of re-traumatizing yourself.
Yeah.
So that can be a really, really powerful tool. If your therapist is trained and, can handle that situation, like that's a great, like, I don't know, how, like it's a cool way to use ketamine that I think is not done very often. I haven't heard of a lot of people using it that way.
Yeah, that is cool. Okay. So is it mainly recommended for trauma in that way? Or what about for other things?
I think like, it can be used for all kinds of things in a therapy session.
Okay.
So you can like, if if there's something you want to explore that you're having trouble with for any reason, like try it again with a lozenge and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You might,
because it maybe just kind of opens you up.
Right. You might remember new things. You might become more like receptive to your own emotions, things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then a final recommendation that I also have not heard a lot of people using lozenges like with a partner. So like if you're laying in bed listening to your headphones and that kind of thing, you're kind of like off in your own world. But there's another way to do it where you're like laying in bed next to someone, like really just your partner, right? You wouldn't do this with a friend. So you're laying down and maybe not having the music in your headphones, but out in the room. And either you could do it just like therapy, like have a conversation with your partner, or you can just kind of like it's nice to have a companion, right? So someone who's present and supportive, and maybe talking, maybe not. Like you can try it in different ways with different dosages and things like that, different music. But I think like it's a way to help shore up a feeling of safety. If you're in
safety with that person, or just safety for yourself, you mean during the ketamine journey?
Yeah. Or like in life, if safety is something you struggle with and you do feel more safe with your partner, then like similar to the way we were talking about, like the way ketamine helps you form new habits.
Yeah.
Like you can encourage if whatever your partner helps you feel, whether it's love, safety, all of the above, ideally, sitting with them during a lozenge, I found in my experience can be very like reassuring. And that feeling of safety isn't just about like having a better lozenge experience, but more like kind of bringing that feeling of safety like into your life, kind of locking it in, making a habit of like realizing that you're safer than you feel a lot of the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's a very
cool idea.
Calming. Nice. Yeah. I mean, it takes an hour and a half or so, or an hour or whatever it does. So like it can be a lot to ask, but it's also kind of a nice, like, once a week, once a month, whatever, like have a moment with your partner where you're just kind of both meditating and present for each other. And
cool. What do you think would happen if you like invited your mom over to be there while you were doing a lozenge?
I think it's similar to like being with my mom after an infusion.
Okay.
It's like, like conversations get deep. Like there were definitely conversations after infusions I've had with my mom. I've never tried it with a lozenge, but like I've had conversations with her about experiences I had that I had never told her about, that were really like enlightening to the whole relationship that she and I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
And I wouldn't say they were like, it's not like you like do ketamine and then try to like address a conflict between two people. I probably wouldn't recommend that. It's more like a opportunity to share it makes it easier to share.
Okay. And probably try to keep it positive.
I mean, follow,
or at least
kind
constructive.
of along the idea of like, there's no such thing as a bad trip. Like it might be like, maybe something does come up in your conversation with your mom where you're like, why did you let me watch those terrible movies that were super sexist in the 80s? And she's like, I had no idea. Like, I wish I didn't grow up the way I grew up also, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Like the ones I watched were way worse.
Exactly. Yeah. But if that's been bothering you and then all of a sudden you're like kind of able to approach it and you feel like approaching it, I would say go ahead and do it. Like, don't just avoid something because it's negative. Like sometimes that's where your mind and heart are leading you. Like, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And those are the best ways that I've found to do lozenges, just a smattering of ideas. I don't know if I wouldn't recommend like leaving the house, and that's more of like, recreational drugs type stuff.
Yeah. I feel like an adventure.
Right. Unless you have like, a very peaceful backyard and you want to like lay under a tree or whatever. That's great.
Yeah.
I used to do that on my back porch, which is really nice. Feel the breeze and all that stuff. But anyway, those are my suggestions.
Cool.
For creative lozenge use, getting the most out of the medicine. And other than that, I don't know, just reach out, contact us, let us know if you have ideas about other ways to use a lozenge or other experiences you've had. We'd love to hear them.
Absolutely.
Be sure to let us know if what you're saying is something that can be shared on the podcast, and email us at ketamineinsights@gmail.com. Instagram is the same, Ketamine Insights. And the phone number will be recorded later and added to the end of this recording.
That's right. It's a great number.
It's a great number.
We will share it.
But anyway, thank you so much for doing this podcast with me, Lynn. This has been a blast.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Molly.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you to our wonderful listeners.
Bye, all you wonderful listeners. Thank you. And that's it. Thanks so much for joining us for episode 7. The hosts of Ketamine Insights are Lynn Schneider and Molly Dunn. Our music is by Solid State Symphony. Finally, please take a moment to send this episode to your partner or your doctor or your best friend from 2nd grade. Hi, best friend. Welcome to Ketamine Insights. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Boop-a-doop, boop, boop.